first of all, you want to spawn in the game, no problem at all. All you have to do now is very simply punch yourself a saber-tooth. The raptor is going to be real easy to kill. All you have to do is punch it, okay? If they start running away, don't worry about it. Once you've done that, you want to get yourself a metal pickaxe. Don't worry, all you need is some stone, and you can make yourself a metal pickaxe. It's already all good, right? Once you've done that, you want to kill the rest of the raptors. Make sure you take all of their meat, because that's going to be used for the next one once we tame the T-Rex, all right? All right, once you've done that, what you're going to want to do is place down some basic foundations and put down a fireplace. It's really easy. Shove yourself some stuff in there, put some gasoline in there. Then you want to make yourself through the Cave of Wonders. Your T-Rex will be able to take everything out, no problem whatsoever, real easy like. Alright, then all you have to do is go through the portal. Once you go through the portal, you'll be coming against the Overseer. Super easy to take down, guys. Real easy once you've got yourself a single Rex. Okay, once you've killed the spider thing, yeah, you'll be absolutely fine to teleport back and ascend, and you've won Ark. Thanks very much for watching. K-Thanks, 100 million subscribers. Bye! Now, come on, guys. We ain't doing that to you today. Today, we're doing a beginner's guide to Ark Survival Evolved. So first of all, this is for solo, not for PvP. This is if you want to jump into the game, maybe bring a mate along with a host dedicated session and see what Ark is about. I've got so many people who said they bought the game Ark Survival Evolved because I've been playing it a lot on my channel recently. So this one's for you guys. First things first, let's go through the basic settings. Now, I'm not going to pause and stop. I'm just going to go through all of the settings here. And what I would consider this to be is a nice, good base way of getting yourselves into Ark. It's not as harsh as the Ark rules are. It's a little bit easier, but it will get you used to the mechanics and the basics and get you through probably your first playthrough of Ark in about 40 to 50 hours rather than maybe 100 or 120 hours. The main ones to consider is doubling, and that's right, doubling the taming speed. If you're playing solo, there's no need to worry about long tames or anything like that whatsoever, and doubling the taming speed is still a reasonable amount of time when you get to the higher level dinos, but it means that you won't be crippled earlier on. I'd also consider dropping the use of your food and your water and increasing your temperature fortification. These are things that will, again, absolutely cripple you guys. So I've set this up as a good beginner's starting guide to Ark. I would still recommend putting the difficulty all the way up because you want higher level dinos to spawn. Lower level dinos will still spawn as equally as higher level dinos, so there's nothing too much to worry about. So here we go. I would recommend also changing your key bindings if you are on console with particular setting to the gamma values, gamma changes, etc. Pause the video, back on that section if you want to have the same layout as me, which I find pretty easy. I've got two additional mouse buttons on my mouse, and then you want to jump into Ark. Obviously, the first thing you're going to want to do is make your character however the hell you want him to look, and then start collecting stones and wood. We're going to be staying in this rather safe area for quite some time. It's worth mentioning that if you spawn in the north of the map, you're going to find it a lot harder. And as this is a beginner's guide, I'm assuming you're not going to want to get eaten by a T-Rex every 5 seconds. So your first quest is punch some trees. No, this isn't Minecraft. We're doing it just for the fun of it. When you're hitting these trees with your fists, you want to make sure you get lots of wood, lots of thatch, and lots of stone. You'll already, of course, have the pickaxe unlocked, and by now you should have your first level up too. You can put level ups into whatever you want, but I would recommend putting quite a bit into fortitude just at the beginning to get yourself going, so that you don't, have to die of heat exhaustion and cold and stuff all of the time. You can, of course, spec it however you want to. This is just my recommended for the beginner's guide. Once you've got yourself a pickaxe, smash some stuff around the place, have some fun with it. It can be used as a weapon as well, and I would 100% recommend making yourself an axe as soon as you've made yourself a pickaxe, because they kind of complement each other. Axes and pickaxes in the game are going to get you different quantities of stuff from the same materials that you farm. So for example, a pickaxe is going to get you more thatch and an axe is going to get you more wood. An axe will get you more stone, whereas a pickaxe will get you more flint. I wouldn't necessarily worry about getting weapons or clothes at the start. Just focus on getting the basic materials you need while you level up. For me, on this occasion, actually getting a storage device was probably the best thing to do at the beginning. It meant that if I died, as long as I stayed in the same area, without a bed anyway, it meant that, of course, I would be able to get most of my stuff back from there, and I don't have any time wasted. This is all about being as safe as possible. If you're unlucky, you might have a big, scary Carno somewhere around the starting area. Me, I didn't. I didn't even have any piranhas in the water, which is great news. But your mileage may vary. You could have a Spino in the starting area. You could have a Megalodon come and swim up the river. But most of the time, guys, you'll be absolutely fine. The Carnos will wander away. Not Carnos as in the Carno dinosaurs, but the carnivorous dinosaurs when I say Carnos. Will generally wander away and find themselves food elsewhere after a certain amount of time. Now, if you're adventurous, you can tame yourself something small straight away, such as a dodo or one of these things, which is a little passive tame. And the only reason why I tamed this was for a little bit of insurance purposes. So what I mean by insurance purposes is maybe there is a comfy party going on nearby, maybe a raptor spawns, and if I get 2 or 3 of them, they can at least act as bait while I run away and maybe do a little bit of damage to the thing in question as well. You don't have to do this, guys. I just wanted to show that it is an option early on to be able to tame yourself and indeed breed these little critters. It's worth noting that if you want to control your tame, all you have to do is press and hold E on the creature, or your action button if you have remapped it. You'll have options, behavioral settings, you can access their inventory. If you want to quick access any inventory, press F on your keyboard and that should bring it up straight away. There will be a different binding, of course, depending on if you're on console or PC. I'm afraid I can't tell you which one the console one is, but you'll be able to find that in your options menu. The nice thing about these ones as well is they will actually attack and do a fair amount of damage as well, and you can boost XP with them, but I'm not going to go over every single tame or what every single tame can do in this video, just the ones that you should probably be focusing on. Now, your first early game food should be fish, really. They're super easy to get, they very rarely fight back. Don't hit the saber-toothed salmon. Seriously, you'll be in big trouble. And more importantly, they are super easy to find because they spawn so often in rivers, and as they don't fight back, it is a good little way of getting yourself some food. Cook that up on a fireplace, which you'll need wood and raw meat for. You can obviously do it with other raw meats if you're feeling more ambitious, but I'm just saying, getting the fish, probably the easiest way of doing things. Personally, once you've done most of this stuff that I've already mentioned to you, you're going to be finding it's becoming night time. I did adjust the day and night cycle so you get a little bit more time in the light than the dark, but that's where those key binding changings with the gamma settings come into play. Whatever you've changed it to, once it starts getting nighttime and you struggle to see anymore, you're going to want to press those buttons. When it's nighttime, I wouldn't stray too far away from your base camp, where you've set yourself up some fires, and in this case where I've left some creatures at. Because we're so close to the starting area, I felt it was no need to bring my creatures with me yet, and actually this really did work in my favour, because if for whatever reason in the future my base is destroyed, where I build it somewhere in the middle of the map and I have to come back to this starting area, these 3 creatures here will help me out massively, because it means of course I can take them with me to be a distraction, etc, etc. Although hopefully I never get to the stage where my entire base is destroyed and I have to rely on creatures I tamed on my very first day in Ark, but it's always nice to be prepared. As you can see here, I'm building a set of fires so that I can grab an egg from these 2 mating and actually spawn a new one in. Of course, doing all of this sort of stuff does gain you XP and helps you level up faster, etc, etc. The only reason why I wanted to do it, as I said before, it's good to have a distraction with me so that if I have some trouble later on, I can kind of just feed them to whatever it may be. Now, as the night goes on and on, it will get colder and colder. It will get warmer and warmer as well, but only after you go past midnight and you head towards the daytime. So make sure that you keep an eye on your temperature in the bottom right hand corner of the screen at all times. Don't forget to regularly eat and drink, which in this starting area, as I said, because of the fish, because of the fires, because of the amount of wood you get, is relatively easy to do. So it's probably time we started learning some more useful stuff. Learning the thatch foundation means that you have something to put on a simple bed, a mortar and pestle, and anything that you so desire that requires a foundation. We won't be making a bed here because it's so close to a natural spawn. However, you can, if you wanted to make a way to return here without killing yourself, make yourself a sleeping bag, make yourself a simple bed. Important thing about the mortar and pestle is that we want to get grinding for those narcotics as soon as possible, because as soon as we've learned ourselves the Tranq Arrows, then we can start heading towards the middle of the map. So learn the mortar and pestle, the narcotics, as quickly as you possibly can, and then start spoiling your meat. So what you do, you take your mortar, you take your pestle, you pop it on your foundations, and you stick some spoiled meat and narco berries inside, and that makes your narcotics. We want to make a fair amount of them so that we don't have to worry about later on grabbing more and more. But don't worry, we're going to grab as our first main creature something that can get loads of narco berries. Spoiling meat is also super easy. You split apart your meat stacks in your inventory by killing some lesser creatures, which will also gain you more experience, which is the aim of the game at the moment, and this should be able to help you grow faster. If you're feeling adventurous, you can go and find some of the explorer notes that are around here, but you might run into some difficult dinos on the way, so I'm going to recommend staying here and doing the grind for a little bit, trying to get to the level that allows us to unlock those Tranq Arrows. It's worth noting that Explorer Notes increase the amount of XP you gain and will give you an XP dump, as well as giving you an XP dump if you're riding on the back of a dino and allowing them to have kind of, it's not double XP, but increased XP as well. These can be found in ruins or shrines across any Ark map, and will give details on dinosaurs and the lore behind Ark. Smash like if you'd like me to do a lore episode on Ark Survival Evolved. While you're collecting, don't forget to grab stone, thatch, wood, and fibre. To collect fibre, all you have to do is run over and press your action button across plants. That will get you your berries as well. Keep gaining experience if you are waiting to level up. If you're trying to collect some raw meat or hide, make sure you try and get the most amount of experience possible. Here's a good thing, if a Pagomax steals your stuff, set it on fire so that if you lose it, you can always follow the flashing lights of it being on fire. Just hit it with your torch and you've got yourself a nice little pro tip there. Another pro tip, if you're trying to kill dodos and lesser creatures, use your pickaxe. It takes less stuff to repair your pickaxe than it does your regular axe, so would highly recommend doing that. As you can see here, I've split up all of my meat to make sure that it spoils all evenly, so we get a load of spoiled meat in one go. I would suggest making multiple boxes as well, just to store everything. You don't know what's going to be useful when. I'd keep collecting narco berries and making narcotics, splitting apart meat, and making as many narcotics as you possibly can do. This will help you later on and save you a bunch of time, especially while you're trying to level up. Don't forget, by collecting all of these things, you're going to be leveling up anyway, so that will help out a lot. Now, once you got yourself to level 10, you'll unlock yourself the bow and the stone arrow. Fairly important to learn, so would highly recommend it, but maybe I would personally ignore things like the wooden foundation for now, because we're going to skip straight ahead to the stone when we need it. We're not going to be building anything out of wood unless you desperately feel that you need to be protected against other things. Or if you fancy staying in the area, then you want to make yourself a base straight away. Personally, for me, I think it's an easy enough grind to get yourself to stone level before you have to worry about that sort of thing, because we want to make our base closer to the center of the map. That way we're nearer all sorts of other creatures, we are nearer to more important landmarks on foot, and even though it is a little bit of a dangerous journey, it will allow us to level up faster and, more importantly, get us near some metal. So keep cranking away, keep upgrading your cannon fodder, as I said, you may find them useful. In this particular run, I didn't, because there was no raptors that spawned nearby, and I was relatively safe. But you'd be thankful if they are there, in case a raptor comes out of nowhere and thinks, look like a tasty snack. At this stage, I would actually start pumping things like stamina, things like movement speed. Movement speed might seem like a wasted perk in a way, but actually I think personally it's probably one of the best things in Ark. With a few clicks into movement speed, you can outrun things like T-Rexes, Trikes, Raptors, and this will be very, very useful later on. On my other series, I've got myself over 200% movement speed, and this makes a humongous difference when I'm going out alone, or if I get myself knocked off of the top of my dino. So movement speed, very useful. Stamina, very useful. Health and melee damage, all very, very useful. But don't forget, all of those things can be helped along by armor and dinos, so movement speed in a last-ditch attempt is always a good thing to escape from dinos that are attacking you. Keep the grind going. The longer you keep the grind going, the more you level up. Eventually you'll reach leather armor. Very, very worth grabbing the leather armor. Super easy to make and will help you out a lot. Should stop you from getting quite as cold as well. And more importantly, you're starting to look a little bit more like a survivor. And, you know, looking like things is half the battle. Now that you've got yourself a bow and arrow, it should be easier to take on certain things. And there is a technique I want to talk to you about, and that's jumping. Jumping is super useful in the game, and let me explain why. It continues your momentum. When you're using a bow and arrow, for example, you'll slow down when you draw back the bow. This means that if you're trying to escape and shoot at the same time, you might find yourself running into some difficulty. Whereas if you jump just before you pull the bow back, then you will actually gain yourself a few extra yards when you release, and in some cases, once you time it really well, you can actually start not losing any momentum whatsoever. Although if you're going to take on a trike, I'd recommend getting into a high place, and if you do get hit off the top, be super careful, because you don't want to be blasted into the middle of the ocean or blasted into smithereens or have a very angry trike after you, so make sure you get up high enough. This is something that's really good for leveling up quickly, killing slightly higher level dinos and staying out of their way. Might feel like cheating, but trust me, this is still very dangerous. You got to be careful. Now the best thing is when stuff breaks, because you're in the starting area, everything should be nearby that you need. The bow especially is really easy to mend. Fiber, wood, and the way you can check what it needs to be repaired is by hovering over it when you go into your inventory. If for whatever reason it's not showing up when you go into your inventory, you'll see that little icon in the top right hand corner for tooltips of the left hand side of the screen, the one with the eye in a little speech bubble with a bit of text after it that's sort of just acting as lines. Click on that one and it will show you your tooltips. So at this stage you should have a fair amount of stuff. Some wood, some hide, some fiber. You should have got yourself around about 30 to 50 narcotics if you've been playing in a medium sort of fashion as I have. If you go all out, then you might even have up to 100 narcotics at this stage. This is all really useful. But we do need to break out of the starting area at some point. You're probably about 2 hours in at this stage, and you're starting to feel antsy about going to tame bigger dinos. Don't worry, patience will be a virtue, and you'll see why in a minute. So while you've been hitting rocks and stones, I'm guessing you've probably got some metal. Would highly recommend not throwing any of this away, as you're gonna need it. The next stage of things is going to be all about the smithy, the metal hatchet and the metal pick. These are your first truly important upgrades into the world of Ark. No more stone items, we're running on metal. And the nice thing is, because you spawned in this particular starting area, which is the starting area incidentally that I always recommend spawning in by the way, you'll have lots of rocks by the water, and these tend to have a bit of metal in them. Please never throw away your metal early game. It's going to be useful to you a little bit later on. And we will, in this video, be exploring the best way of getting, well, not the best way, but an easy way of getting metal pretty darn quickly. So very quickly, there's another little pro tip I want to give you guys. You can see me dropping and picking up a load of stuff in one go by using the drop all button, and this is because I'm over encumbered when I have all the materials I need to make the refining forge, something which is used for smelting iron ingots or ignots if you come over from my Daz 1 and 2 series. And what this allows us to do is just pick it up, go to the other side of it, pick it up, go to the other side of it, pick it up, which means we can just drag it if I don't want to take it individually over to somewhere else. So quite a useful little tip for you. Only kind of works in and around your base, but something that is worth noting nevertheless. Also, the refining forge. Very simply, you pop in your metal, you pop in some fuel. In this case, we're popping in some wood, burn it, and of course, you'll get your iron ingots. This can be used to make your smithy and your hatchets, and of course, your pickaxe. I'm aware, by the way, I keep calling hatchets axes, but in the UK we call them axes when I look at it, and I look at the pictures, not what they're actually called, which is probably a bad move. I'm sorry if I'm confusing. I'll make sure to label everything in the video correctly for you. Switch over to the metal pick as soon as you can, and once again, start hitting rocks to get more metal, because metal is going to be fueling our pick and our axe, which we'll still be using as our primary weapons. You'll notice that I haven't even learned a weapon yet, so we're going to be using these as weapons. And again, you'll see why in just a little bit. Once you get past level 21, you are going to finally unlock yourself the Tranq Arrows, and this is where things start getting really interesting. Once you've unlocked Tranq Arrows, effectively it's time to go and get our first big boy tame. So make sure to learn those Tranq Arrows and then combine your arrows and narcotics in your inventory to be able to make yourself the first knockout tool of choice. By this stage, you should, now that you're 20 levels higher, should have a fairly good grasp of how the game works. In terms of crafting and food and hunger and water, you're now an expert. Congratulations. Give yourself a pat on the back. And while you're here as well, if you've been watching the video thus far, don't forget to hit subscribe to see more videos like this in the future, or perhaps watch my Scorched Earth series that I'm playing with Daz Games. And we are doing some future videos with Terrorizer as well. So would highly recommend hitting that subscribe button, and don't forget as well, if you're watching it this far, you must like the video because you're still watching it. So smash that like button because it will help me out massively and allow me to bring more videos like this to you in the future. So cheers for that, especially if you do. Don't forget, it's free. So with a plethora of arrows in our back seat and a parasaur saddle to boot, which you can make out of all of the surplus stuff that you've been gathering over the time, we need to find the dino in question. I see one right across the way. Big warning, if you're gonna go swimming, check the piranhas first. They're still going to be able to take you down pretty easily at this stage, even if you're in full leather armor and you've put some substantial points into your melee damage. If you do die, don't worry. As long as you're in the immediate area, don't worry too much about dying. You can obviously just run straight back in, grab your stuff, and then swim back out again. If you want to make a bridge out of thatched stuff, don't be afraid to do that either. But to be perfectly honest with you, it's not really needed. Just take the shortest route across the river and you should be absolutely fine, especially if you do a running jump off of a single foundation piece. It will get you halfway across and you can probably survive the remainder of the way. Now it's a case of taming one of these bad boys, and I would recommend taming these guys first, and you'll see why in just a moment. All you have to do is shoot some Tranq Arrows. I'd generally leave a couple seconds before shooting between them. You don't have to just fire them into it willy-nilly, so it's probably good at this point to go over the basics of taming. You can use things like slingshots or boomerangs if you're on a different map, or you can also use clubs to knock out animals. In this case, we are using Tranqs and Tranq Arrows. This means you can be further away from the dino and you have some decent range. It will also net you back some of your stone arrows if you walk over the corpse or the sleeping dino that you're shooting, which means that you gain some of the stuff back that you lost by turning your Tranq Arrows, into Tranq Arrows. The basics of taming as thus. Most animals, and I use the word most kind of lightly, some are passive tames, but most of them need to be knocked out and fed their favourite food to tame. Meat eaters will generally attack you. That's how you can tell they're meat eaters. And the vegetable eaters generally won't attack you. There are of course exceptions to both rules, and sometimes the meat eaters will eat things like black pearls, or perhaps they'll eat sulfur, or perhaps, you'll never know, they eat wyvern milk. It all depends on exactly what you're taming, but for the basics and for most tames it's generally meat or berries. If you want to know what the best thing is, or if you're unsure as to whether it eats meat or vegetables, it's really simple. All you do is pop some berries or pop some meat at the same time in its inventory, and whichever it eats, that's generally what it is. And if you want to know what the best meat for it is, for example, most meat eaters will prefer prime meat, then all you have to do is pop all the different types of meats that you have on you, or all the different types of berries that you have on you in the inventory, and whichever it eats first, that is its preferred food, as it were. So in this case, the purple berries were the most preferred of this parasaur. There are other things that you can use to tame, most effectively kibble normally, but this is a basic guide, so we're not going over kibble today. I made it eat one narcotic so that we were absolutely sure that it wasn't going to wake up, and then you basically just have to wait to eat its fill. Try and maybe gain some experience in the general vicinity while you wait, because that's going to help you out later on. The faster we can level up, the better. Once you're tamed, you can pop on the saddle and ride your dino to victory. Once again, don't forget, if you've crossed a river, make sure you try and get to the other side with the least amount of piranhas attacking you possible. If I'm honest, piranhas are probably one of the most dangerous things you'll see here. Now, once you are to the other side, if you had to cross a river, then attacking the piranhas can be quite advantageous. You can level your dino up. Just make sure to keep your eye on your health meter in the top right hand corner for the dino. You'll notice you now have two health meters. In the upper right hand corner, you'll have your dino's health meter, and in the bottom right hand corner, you'll have your health meter. Depending on what's attacking you, stuff can hit you or the dino, so you've got to keep an eye on both your health, your stamina, your food, etc. Luckily, water isn't a case of the dino's issues, only for you, the squishy human being. So you have to keep an eye on your water, but you don't have to keep an eye on the dino's water, which is good. Leveling up stamina, health, and movement speed is the aim of the game with the parasaur. And to be perfectly honest with you, the best way of doing it is just to keep hitting grass. It will keep grabbing berries. That means you can make more and more and more narcotics as well, which we're going to be using to tame our raptor next. Oh yes. But now you should have leveled up a fair bit, maybe around 25 to 27, depending how long you want to stay in the starting area. But it's time to move on. We need to get out of here. We need to go to a place where we're going to make a base. So take along all of the metal that you've got so far, anything that you think you're going to need personally, maybe turn all of your spoiled meat into narcotics, and get ready for the journey. I wouldn't recommend doing this at night like I did personally, but you can do, and let me show you how. Once you've got all of the things that you think you're going to need in your inventory, now's time for the riskiest part of this beginner's guide. You're probably going to want to find a good place for a base. I'd recommend somewhere near the center and on the edge of a cliff. If you're on the edge of a cliff, then the dinos that are around you only have one way to attack you. They can't attack you over the side of the cliff unless they are absolutely massive, in which case you set up base in the wrong location, my friend. But you can also use it for scouting. You can use the spyglass over the side of it to see if there's anything down in a valley or down at the bottom of the mountain. So building on the side of a cliff is highly recommended, and you can leave one side of your base open. So if you are particularly irked with collecting materials to build stuff, then you are kind of safe because you don't need to build a wall on one side. But here comes the real party piece of taming the parasaur, and that is the ping. You can ping the parasaur to show you where nearby enemies are. This is particularly useful if you're going through very tall trees so that you don't get pounced on, which can happen, and you don't want that. For some reason, the parasaur also seems to be really good at vertical mountain climbing. Don't know what it is. Most of the other dinos in the game aren't this good, but the para is, so that's great news. Keep pinging yourself towards the center of the map. Okay, avoid any red dots you see, because you don't know what the red dot could possibly be. You just know it's an enemy detected. And especially if you're near a swamp, then some of you may know what will jump out at you, but hopefully this won't happen. Also, don't accidentally hit a saber-toothed salmon. That's a bad thing to happen. Trust me, you don't want to hit that. By now, you're probably, as I said, around the 25, 26, 27 mark. It's now time to learn stone walls, stone foundations, stone ceilings, stone stairs, stone door frames, and most importantly, stone pillars. You can learn the pike as well, which is a good weapon for keeping things at bay, and indeed a water jar if you haven't learned yourself a water skin or you fancy a little bit of an upgrade on it. Once you've selected your desired base location, as I have done here, there's a little cliff on one side so that, as I said, I don't have to worry about being attacked from one direction. I know that the trees that are near me won't spawn in those horrible things in trees, and of course it's a good place for a bit of everything. We're near water, so we can grab water whenever we want. We're near a mountain, which will grab us metal whenever we want. We're near an easy source of food for the fish in the water. We've got wood and trees and basic bits of metal around us. Because we're near the center of the map, that means that more interesting stuff starts to spawn for later on. And we are near the Anki's spawn location, as well as things like raptors as well. You've got to be careful because this area can sometimes spawn aloes in, so maybe go to the other side if you so fancy, but then there are more trees over there. Basically, build an area that's open that you can see around in, so if trouble it does start brewing, then at least you'll be safe to run away. And that is still our main prerogative, to stay alive at this point, because we need to make a bed. We need to make a spawn section for us to get to, because this is going to be our primary base location. The way I personally play Ark is by making a main base and then making outposts around the map, if I'm playing solo anyway, that I can get to with ease. Make one in the water, both ends of the map. Make one in the mountains. Make one in the snow area. Make one right in the center, right at the south. Wherever you want a little outpost with a bit of everything in there so that you can hang there if you die nearby, etc, etc. And more importantly, have storage areas with basic tools and equipment in case something does indeed go wrong at your main base. But what you're going to want to do first of all, place down some thatch foundations and build yourself pretty much what you built yourself in the starting area. Make it a little bit bigger, have a couple of beds there so you know you can always spawn back there if you die. Speeding along now, it's time that we tamed a raptor. Super easy to tame. Make sure you try and face one on its own. Okay, if there's a load of packs nearby, avoid it. Just try and pick off one that's completely solo. Shoot it with tranq darts and it will eventually go down. If the other raptors are nearby and it goes down, they won't attack that raptor that's gone to the floor. So you're free to finish the rest of them off with arrows, which is pretty easy to do if I'm more honest. To tame this bad boy, I would actually recommend not limiting its movement. Jump, turn, fire an arrow. It's going to follow you rather than it running away. This means that you can lead it away from the rest of its pack, or alternatively, you can lead it into a trap if you so wish. But at this stage, I wouldn't worry too much about traps and wasting resources. We still need to continually collect resources so that we can build our stone stuff. It's worth noting that while you've been doing all of this stuff, making that miniature base, etc, etc, while you're waiting for more level ups or you're waiting to get maybe a little bit more experience, you should be gathering materials not only for experience but also for building your base out of stone. At this stage you should have lots and lots of boxes in the area of your base where you are going to be so that you can build yourself pretty much a basic base as soon as you get back with your raptor bro. You'd have reached the ability to make the raptor saddle ages ago, so don't worry about that whatsoever. The metal spike walls are the next thing on the list that I would personally learn, and perhaps the large stone walls as well. The metal spike walls only take 25 metal, but provide really good protection early in the game for your base, so we're going to learn that to use later. Make sure to keep anything that plans on killing you away from the raptor, because that raptor is going to be super useful later on. Tame the raptor with prime meat or meat, depending on what you've got on you. A diplo can be easily taken down by shooting it in the face with arrows. It generally won't catch up with you at this point, especially if you put a bit of stuff into your movement speed, as I have done. They'll provide you with prime meat quite often and means that your raptor will tame fairly quickly. Now that we've got a raptor, it's time to search for the Ankh. We should be getting somewhere near the mid-30s now. Once we get to 36, we can get an Anki saddle, which will allow us to get lots of metal and stone very, very quickly, which is definitely something we want to do. Finding an Ank is super easy if you're near the middle of the map. Go up any mountain, then you'll find them there. If you stay on the back of your raptor and shoot it, it's really easy to outrun, but watch for that tail, it hurts big styly. I would also try and start luring it back to your base in a way, or the direction of your base, because these things are slow when they come to follow you, so getting them as close as you can to your desired base location is a must. It's quite a good idea to mark where your Ank will fall, because he can blend in with the environment really, really well. So maybe get your map out, check where you are, and see what's what. Even if you don't have your player location setting turned on, you can generally tell the sort of area you're in by looking at the gradients on the map. Don't forget you can zoom into the map as well. Once we get to level 30, you'll notice you start unlocking the sword and metal sickle. Both really useful. The sword is a fast DPS weapon, and this sickle will help you get basically unlimited fiber, so you never have to worry about fiber ever again. While we're waiting for our Ank to tame, it's probably useful to talk about whistling. If you press and hold, in my case, the T button, but it might differ, check your commands, then you will see that you have a wheel that will come up. By doing this, you can actually control dinos at a distance. You can get everyone to follow you. You can control your dinos to attack certain creatures just by pointing at those dinos in the middle of the screen. Very useful indeed. While we're here, some other things to mention. If you press K, you can look around you while you're on the back of a tame, and it means that you can use free camera with you as a linked center, as a kind of spinning dolly cam. I use this to get a lot of my intros done, and it looks kind of cinematic as well, which is nice. If you want to get rid of your HUD, you press the backspace button. Again, useful for cinematics and screenshots. It goes a long way to help learn what your key bindings are, or the controls on your controller. If you want, I would highly recommend looking at your key bindings on the regular if you keep forgetting what your shortcuts or your buttons are. I may do a tutorial in the future on how to set up your key bindings fully and correctly, and what the best way to do is. Maybe you guys can give me some advice on that in the comment section below. How do you have your key bindings set? I hope you've been collecting stone, fiber, hide, wood, all of that useful stuff, and storing them in your basic area where you're going to plan on building a base, because we're going to need a lot of stone stuff now. So now I'm actually going to switch over into the game itself to take over to talk to you about building. I did actually record a building section in the game, but I want to talk through it because I can't really sort of describe and do it at the same time. It's a bit weird. So let's jump into the game, shall we? So, welcome to my base. This took probably about an hour to an hour and a half to make. And I did it by collecting all of those materials and making sure that I stored them away so that I could do it. Like I told you before, metal spikes, super, really easy, good way to make sure that you are safe in case of random attacks. And don't forget that your dinos at this point are going to be able to defend you as well. So I'm in creative mode currently, which is how I'm flying about all over the place. I tried to sort of explain it in the video, and I did a pretty poor job, so I'm going to live explain it because that's a lot easier for me to do, I think. So you'll notice how I've done building. Now I've left the basic way to make stuff on so that you guys can follow along, but you can disable collision, which allows you to build a lot more interesting structures, which is something I've done on me and Daz's Ark series. If you want to check that out, there'll be a link in the top right hand corner now, and you can see it from season 1 to 1.5 to 2, and we're soon going to be moving on to season 3 as well. But let's talk about this, the basics of building. At this point in the game, the basics you're going to want to have are the stone stairs, the stone wall, the thatch foundations, the stone ceiling, and the stone pillar. These is pretty much only made with these things, and the window one as well if you want windows. I just added windows to make it look slightly more fancy. And the doorway, that's it. These things are the things you're going to want to use most of all. Now, the trick in Ark is to try and make yourself a flat platform to be able to build stuff on. Now, this can be difficult on the side of a minor cliff. As I've done here, it's much safer, as I told you, to build on the side of a cliff. But let me take this spot over here to give you some more examples. So the first thing you're going to want to do really is lay down your stone foundation. Okay, so that is going to be the base of everything that we build from now on. If you want to, you can test how far you can take it by placing down these thatch foundations. As you can see, I can't join that one there. That's absolutely fine. So I'm going to pick the thatch up, and the reason why we use the thatch is that it's a lot easier to replace the thatch than the stone. If we make a mistake or die or something like that, it wastes less materials. Now, as you can see, I can only actually make 2 connections here, but that's okay. We're not going to be building on the foundations. We're going to be building on these bad boys. These will enable you to basically make a flat plane that you can start building stuff on. Now, you can see there are snap points, and as I go across it, it will snap in various different places. In this case, I'm going to snap 1 point away from the edge, and then I'm going to go over here and snap another, and then snap on the edge. Now, if you wanted to, at this point, check that they're the same height. Obviously, you can do this on this direction as well, by not flying, and then you can pick up stuff here. But you got to be wary. If you pick up certain stuff or demolish certain things that are interconnected, then they are going to demolish each other. Now, it's really difficult to tell what is going to demolish what, but generally speaking, if something's attached to a foundation or to this, anything that's attached to that side will pretty much fall over. So, let's continue on, shall we? Instead of using the foundation as the bottom, which is what a lot of people do end up doing, is I'm going to use this one here. I'm going to use this little technique of moving this along and making sure that it's on a snap point. Once I've got 3, maybe 4, I can start placing my ceilings down. And these ceilings are going to be used as the basis of our flat plane. The more you move it out, the better you're going to be off. Now, you'll notice there'll be 2 snap points in this area now. So, there'll be a snap point where you snap it to the ceiling, and there'll be a snap point where you can snap it to the other foundation. So we're going to snap it to the other foundation, snap it to the other foundation again, and you'll be able to tell that when the thing isn't rising out of the ceiling. And then we're going to pick up the middle foundation, or the stone pillar, whichever you're using. They act in the same way. And now this means that I have used less stone foundations, and you could have done that before with this pillar as well. I just wanted to use it as an example. And now everything is going to be fine. Now this is what I'd recommend starting with, a square like this. This you're going to be able to expand basically nigh on infinitely into certain areas. Now you can do it one of 2 ways. You can make lots of little ones like this and almost like a mini village around the space. That could work quite well. You can make one big base, which is what I've done over here. I would actually probably say making a load of smaller stone areas to build up from, like this, and you can build walls around it like such, is probably a better thing to do. And the reason that it's a better thing to do is that if one thing is attacked and destroyed, or if there's an issue, you've got multiple places to run, multiple places to go about doing things. I wouldn't recommend putting a roof on them just yet either. So this has used 20 stone walls, and we've got ourselves a nice substantial base. You can fit 3 beds in here, you can fit a furnace in here, you can fit yourself basically everything that you need and remain protected. I would highly recommend also putting a stone walkway around the outside of the base. This will allow you to land flyers more easily in the future, and more importantly, this will also allow for another escape route as you can walk around. It also gives the structure a more 3D depth in the way that you look at it, and is very good for basics. So here you go, 5 minutes and I built myself a base worthy of being a base. Now, you'll notice on this one over here, I've made a lot of zigzaggedy stairs that go down off the side of the cliff. This is so I've got multiple escape routes when escaping from stuff if it comes after me. I can run up this one, and if I need to, I can jump from basically section to section like Spider-Man. I can jump like this and get myself up and down, go around everywhere that I possibly need to make sure I've got enough ways up. Now this looks fairly intensive, but it's actually a medium sort of resource usage, but has a huge amount of benefits in the future if a Carno was to come and attack me. In fact, let's simulate it, shall we? There's a Carno right here. Hello. I'm going to hit you. So, I've got the Carno after me. I can't quite outrun it, which is a little bit annoying. We're about the same sort of speed, roughly, which is fine, because it's going to win. I'm going to run out of stamina, and it's not. But if I make myself through trees, and I make myself through these bits and pieces, I can get myself up here, around, up, and it's going to really struggle following me, as you can see, because I've zigzagged my way up and around. Keep myself safe. It's going to attack the stone, but it's not going to do any damage towards the stone. That's the benefit of having stone. If it was wood, then you're going to start being in trouble, because the wooden areas is going to start to take damage, etc., etc. And you don't want that. Here's another pro tip I forgot to mention. If you get off of your mount, then it will actually gain stamina back much faster than if you were sat on it. So that's kind of cool. Back to the building side of things. It will take a long time to get used to how to build in Ark. I'd recommend going into creative mode and messing around and finding the less resource intensive way of doing everything. For example, let's go over here. Bam, there's a stone foundation. If you want to make another bigger house that's slightly flatter, you can do this. And then pick up stuff between each one, like so. That way you haven't wasted a load of stone stuff. We can now see how far we can go with this. Only that far, that's absolutely fine. We can pick that up, and we now know that is as far as we can go there. This will set out the template for your build. In this case, we need it to be up a little bit more. So we're going to plonk that there, pull this one up. There we go. And as you can see, this, well, it doesn't look like much right now, we can make a decent house out of. And because I know that these two are connected here like so, it's connected to that, which means, bam, I can now put one in the middle. That is now using this foundation, this piece here, and this piece here are linked. If this is destroyed, this bit, I believe, will eventually fall. You see, there we go. It has actually fallen down, because those were linked. Anyway, this is what playing around with stuff nets you. There we go. Get it bob on every single time. And you can learn eventually what you can destroy and what you can't. So I know that I can destroy that and everything will still stay connected because there's enough foundations and there's enough pillars around the place. It does take some time to get used to, but I promise once you do get used to it, it will be in your blood forever and you'll remember how to do it every single time. Finally, the last thing we need to do before you're ready to explore the entire island is grab a flyer. Pterodon, pterosaur, the thing that flies, these things with the banana-shaped heads, you're going to want one of these. They're really fast, they've got a barrel roll ability, and they're useful for exploring the island. To tame one, all you have to do, make yourself a bowler, get on the back of your raptor bro, follow it, hold on to the fire button while you're using the bowler, and once you've hit it, it will remain in place. You can then trank it, pop some prime meat or whatever you want into its inventory, tame it, and then you are away. This is from level 1 to about level 40, and now you've got yourself a decent base. You've got yourself the ability to make metal tools. You've got yourself some rudimentary armor and a way to explore the entire island. This video, guys, took me about 3 days to make. This is the ultimate guide to beginners in Ark, or beginner strategies in Ark. If you want to see another one, maybe an intermediate video, then make sure you slap like on the video. If I get, say, 2,000 likes on the video, I'll do an intermediate one. Okay, guys? Or maybe if we get over 15,000 views, I will then do a intermediate guide and eventually, I guess, an advanced guide for you. The intermediate guide would include things like taming the Argentavis, taming a Rex, starting to look for artifacts, advanced base building, and more. So make sure you slap that like button. If there's anything else you'd like me to show you, let me know in the comments section below. I might actually do a dedicated taming basics video to show you the different ways that you can tame in Ark Survival Evolved. So let me know if you want to see that as well. Don't forget to hit the subscribe and notification bell as well, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.
Last but not least, massive thank you to all my Patreons, including Chris, Logan, and Sabrina. You're all absolute legends. If it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be able to keep making videos, so thank you.